just going to go ahead. I'm just going to go ahead and start. Again, everyone, hi, I'm Sixto Wagon. I'm the project director for the BIPOC Arts Network and Fund. And I know that you all have been here for the general information announcement session last week, and we're thrilled that you're here to join us today. Again, I want to remind you that the BIPOC Arts Network and Fund is a revolutionary arts ecosystem that empowers the BIPOC artists, organizations, and communities in Greater Houston area with the transformative opportunities to dream, connect, collaborate, and create. That is a vision that was developed in relationship to from our steering committee and also after listening to our grantees in that first round of funding. So a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today, y'all. We're going to do a bit of the overview, talk about the elements of the Cultural Treasures Accelerator opportunity, as well as eligibility issues. I'm also going to be talking about criteria and vision together in that space. We will go through the application process and its components, including the organizational vision and the narrative questions. And then we'll have a bit of opportunity to go through submittables so that Hank will be able to take you through the online platform. And then we'll have some time for Q&A. Again, the guidelines are available right there. And we have our Spanish translation, our Spanish guidelines available now as well. You can use the QR codes in order to be able to make that happen. The Cultural Treasures Accelerator is a multi-component experience aimed at strengthening the features of an essential component of Greater Houston's thriving BIPOC arts ecosystem, the small and mid-sized arts and culture organizations. There are 4 different components to this, which includes a $20,000 one-time grant to support planning and project expenses to accelerate the organization's self-defined future, a creative risk fund, which makes up that is up to $5,000 per organization available to support bold, adaptive, and creative experimentation. Monthly peer network gatherings in order to build a mutually supportive resource network of peer organizations, and the evaluation and learning. So those are the 4 components. And again, we're going to talk about the eligibility. There has to be in order to be eligible to apply, all applications must have a demonstrated history of BIPOC history and leadership. They have to have a focus and BIPOC focus and recognized contribution to BIPOC cultural legacies. And so that this is, yes. And that they have to have a history of community impact. They must be located in and serve the 9-county region of Greater Houston. An arts and culture or an arts education focus, 501c3 or tribal communities, or fiscally sponsored project actively pursuing 501c3 status within the next 3 years. I want to be clear that I'll talk a little bit more about 501c3 status and fiscally sponsored projects, and clarify some statements that I made in the last aspect. The organizational capacity. Okay, I'm sorry. Yes. What we say about organizational capacity is that there has to be a dedicated leadership, whether it's paid or unpaid, plus a support team who is able to build that future for the organization. We recognize that there's a lot of startup ideas and projects. But in order to be able to be successful in this, and not only to be successful as a project or as an organization, but to be successful within the peer network, we are looking for organizations that have a dedicated leadership and have a support network, recognizing that to be an adaptive and nimble organization in the future, you can't just be doing this alone. So that's one of the things that we'll be looking for. In terms of the criteria and characteristics, the organizations have to have a history of transformative and demonstrable track record. So this should not be a new or a startup venture. They need to have a history of work. What that means is that the history of work can be a lot of impact in a few years, or it could be over decades. You need to be able to make the case within your history and in your vision statement and your narrative. You need to be able to tell us why there has been that a history of work. We do believe that this could be an opportunity for someone who has been doing, like, for an individual or a small group of folks who have been doing a lot of work in the community. And this is an opportunity for them to focus and launch a 501(c)(3). That is, we do believe that that is an opportunity, but we need to be able to see that there has been a history of work and that person or that project actually has been present within within Greater Houston and the 9-county region for a while. We are looking about organizations that have had community impact and impact on BIPOC communities. So how are you thinking about the future, and how is your future as an organization, and also an opportunity in order to be able to support BIPOC communities, and that the work is actually intertwined, and that the engagement and the support for you is also, again, supporting our BIPOC communities in Greater Houston. We're also being thoughtful about folks, like, if your work has been about translation to broad audiences, which is great, and we need all that work, but also be thoughtful in your application around what does that mean to be, what does that mean for communities of color? How is your work and your effort and energy actually supporting not just your own organization, but for the larger community? We're also talking about a diverse funding history that enables the acceptance and management of a one-time infusion of $25,000 that increases capacities for sustainability. So in the last information session, I talked about the IRS's public support thresholds, and that organizations need to have at least 1/3 of their donations must be given by donors who give less than 2% of the nonprofit's overall receipts. So essentially, we need to make sure that what the BIPOC Arts Network and Fund would be providing to you and your project is not over 50% of your budget. There might be exceptions to that, and we're open to those exceptions, but recognize that there won't be that many out of the organizations that are going to be named. They're not going to be, like, a majority of them will not be the exceptions, that there will actually be just a few of them would be exceptions to that 50% rule in that space. Go ahead and like, also, if you have questions, go ahead and use the Q&A function or the chat, but I'll be continuing to go through this in a second. So criteria and characteristics. So the initiative aims to be an accelerator to encourage strategic risk-taking that is grounded in current organizational strengths. We are looking to support organizations who are able to adapt, to change, and be flexible while being able to prioritize and have a focus on what their vision is. We need organizations, we are looking for organizations who have built support through advocates and supporters who are excited about the organization's future, who are willing to contribute time, money, and effort in order to make that future happen. We are looking again, in order to, we recognize that there have been yeoman's efforts done by individuals in order to launch the organizations, and we see that has happened, and there's been successful projects or models of that in the past. For this, we are looking for organizations who have a network of support, who are doing this with folks, because we believe that, like, that is actually a healthier means and actually a more sustainable opportunity for us and for organizations. We are looking to organizations and leaders who have capacities not just to work with, but build with communities, with artists, and with other organizations. So in what ways is your work collaborative and partnership? In what ways is it actually, in what ways are you as an organization thinking beyond just your organizational health, but actually for the broader ecosystem within the BIPOC arts ecosystem as well, like locally as well as nationally and beyond? We also, again, have said that these are characteristics because we also recognize that y'all are going to be, how you all interpret these things is completely open for interpretation. How the organizations create them, how you all live these ideas and these characteristics. That's what we're excited about learning, and that's what we're excited about seeing in this space. But we do believe that that these characteristics are hallmarks of what can be strong and sustainable and adaptive organizations. Yeah. So again, the 4 components of this include a one-time grant funds of $20,000. And the proposed projects that the $20,000 can support include visioning support, active research, pilot initiatives, and next stage programming initiatives. So it could be for consultants, it could be for active research projects, it could be for attempting to try something new and investing in that. It could be actually building on something that you already have, and what would it take in order to make that what would investment in that be in order to take you to your vision and to your vision for 3 years in the future? How can we accelerate that growth? We want to be mindful that the vision is for long-term sustainability. We are not trying to set anyone up for failure, and we are mindful of how what big grants can do to organizations, and also what happens when the loss of big grants. And so it's part of the reason why we are investing $20,000. We recognize that that can be transformational for organizations. It is a large investment, particularly due to some organizations. But we also believe that $20,000 is something that is in with most organizations' grasp in order to raise, and so that you have the capacity in order to be able to fulfill this gap in the future, because it is a one-time grant. We also, as the BIPOC Arts Network and Fund, are utilizing community participatory and trust-based philanthropy approaches, and BANF is funded through May of 2026. So whether we continue or not, we recognize that the current system means that foundation and philanthropies can only give to 501c3 charitable organizations. It is part of the IRS and part of the legal system that's currently in place. We can't change that, so that's part of the reason why we are actually why there is the fiscally sponsored projects should be looking to be a 501c3 in the next 3 years. It is about that stability and that growth that we are trying to support. It is not because we believe that 501c3s are the answer to everything, but we understand that that is the way that the systems currently exist. And those organizations who are interested in that, this is an opportunity in order for them to take advantage of this moment and and for this time. An accelerator means that we're supporting organizations' capacity to get these type of funds. We are also realistic that there aren't that many foundations in Houston, and that the competition for each of these opportunities is increasing. And so we, again, are mindful that getting a 501c3 is not going to be the solution for every organization and for every project, but it is a pathway of support. And we want to make sure that you all are thinking about what that looks like. In fact, we are going to be doing an information session on, I believe, next week on Tuesday. I'll talk about this a little bit later, around what are the steps in order to become a 501c3? What do you need to think about? And so we will be having an information session for those of you who are fiscally sponsored projects who are interested in this, interested in that. If that approach is correct for you, we will have that information session for you next week. So prior grantees named this need to space for dreaming and creating, which we interpret as an opportunity to commit to a process. So we believe that the idea of a creative risk fund is actually related to a creative process. How are you actually thinking about what investment can be, what is strategic risk, what is creative risk, and how are you investing time and resources in order to help take you to that next space? One of the things that we're going to be talking about in the peer network is about adaptive learning and experimentation, and thinking about how do you take opportunities, how do you take advantage of opportunities, how are you preparing your organization in order to continue to be ready to take advantage of opportunities as they're presented to you, to be able to continue to generate ideas within the life cycle of your organization so that you're maintaining a strong life cycle, and that programs and entities continue to be on a growth pattern. But not everything has to be on an endless growth pattern. And so we just want to be able to, for you to have capacities in order to be able to think around what does adaptive learning look like. So when we ask the question, describe your 3-year vision of your organization, we've given you these guiding questions. So what changes and adaptations are you activating in your organization? How has that enabled you to better reflect and support and empower your own defined community? What are your opportunities for growth and change that you want to prioritize? We're asking you to be able to think about this in order to look at your narrative. You don't have to answer all of these questions, but please, hopefully that these questions are giving you ideas in order to be thinking about how do you actually manifest, and not only manifest, but how do you narrate your vision? How are you actually talking about what is that story? The vision of this Cultural Treasures Accelerator is about lasting change within your organization and the communities you serve. So part of what we're going to be looking for in the narrative in this part is, what are you trying to accomplish and why? Eventually, we need you to talk to us about how, and that most organizations and most project grants always talk about the how. We really would like you to talk about what are you trying to accomplish and why you're trying to accomplish it. How is important, but how is not as important to us as the why of what you're trying to do. We also want you to be thinking about who benefits from this and why is that important to your mission. How are you thinking outside of just what is good for your organization, but also what is good for the community, what is good for your audiences, and what are the benefits for them beyond just putting on a show? What are they like? What is the work? What is the what are we doing beyond just we enjoyed a great show, we saw a great exhibition. What are some of those conversations? What are some of those engagements? What is that interaction that you are interested in fostering and supporting? So I also would like you to be thinking about what is it building on or connecting to. So again, as we said, this is not about a startup fund. This is about what are you growing? What are you connecting things to? How are you deepening your approach to things? It's also not just about continuing. So when we think about this, or like one approach that I want to caution folks with is that you all are doing great, like you're doing great work, awesome, and that the $20,000 is going to actually just be for you to continue your work, which is important. But the ideas here are about a cultural treasure accelerator. How are we actually helping you get to your vision, and what are we doing to help catalyze your vision? So it's not just about continuation. What would a new investment in your programs look like? What would that actually enable, and what would that be able to change in this? So I think one of the things is that, like, when we think about life cycle organizations, we have a general idea of like, okay, there's a pattern of growth, and it will goes from here to there, and it's not necessarily linear, but generally things hopefully are going up throughout most of the time. Realistically, we know that sometimes things are not always that great, that there are times that there's moments that, as we learned from the pandemic, as we learned from Every Moment, there are times in which growth is not always up, but there's times that we actually needed to transition, change, take a pause, take a moment, and then reflect. That's also, like, we recognize that that's part of the work. What we're hoping here for the Cultural Treasure Accelerator is that, how do we actually help move you from this orange line to this green line? How are we actually, with the investment of the $20,000 and the peer network and the $5,000 creative risk fund, how does that help you on this journey, on a green line journey, so that the choices, the ideas that you're making here, the investments that you're actually able to make in this moment actually helps to accelerate your growth? It might not be this fast, but at least what is actually taking you to those new places? What is happening? What is happening here? What are we investing in? What are your plans? what are you thinking about in order for us to actually be able to know how we're be able to making a difference in your organization's growth. When we talk about the peer network experience, we recognize that this is that peer networks are an essential component in creating a community of support, generative action, and advocacy. We're really looking at what does it mean to be an asset-based network. And so that we do believe that organizations and entities and communities have what we need in order to succeed. But we don't always recognize them. We don't actually name them, and we're not necessarily like articulate around what they are and how to actually utilize them to their best potential. So this is an opportunity in order for you to look at your work and to be able to name your work and see what can you bring and that you can share to this. We're very interested in the idea of what does it mean to be for a community of practice, and what does a support resource look like, or support resource network look and feel like? How can we actually build a community of support? How can organizations help support each other and not just collaborate on one-time things, but actually be there in times of thriving as well as in times of crisis? So the questions here are straightforward in terms of what does your organization's leadership team bring to share with a 12-month network experience, and how is your organization honed that offering? So the idea here is that what are the assets that you bring? What asset, what is a skill, what is an experience, what is an opportunity that you want to name that your organization does really well, and something that you can share with other organizations in the network? What is something that other people can benefit from? It is a space of generosity. It is a space of sharing, and it is a space of mutual support. When we ask, how is your organization honed that offering? What have you been doing? What has that worked? And how has that actually been showing up in your work? And how does that actually work and how do we, what has that practice look like in order to be able to demonstrate how you've become even better at that skill, that experience? Hopefully that is clear to you all. And there are, again, FAQs that you will have opportunities to look at later on, and then also one-on-one sessions for you to be able to take advantage of in the future. The question around name and organization you see as a model for your organization's work and future work and ongoing trajectory, and explain why. Again, this is an opportunity for you all to narrate it, like to narrate to us what you believe your path is. By looking at other organizations, by looking at other models, you're able to actually tell us what you like about other people's work and why that work is important to you, why that work has resonance to what their pathway has been, and how that actually is an inspiration to you. So be able to name for yourself and for others is like, what are people looking at? And why is it something that why those organizations are supporting of? And also, when you look at these other questions around what does your organization leadership team to bring to the 12-month network experience? Maybe that's also one of those things where if you were thinking about if somebody was going to be like, was going to name you as a model for their own work, maybe that's actually what you wanted to be able to show as that skill, that experience, that thing, or those things that could actually be, you could utilize that process in order to name what you bring to a peer network opportunity. So hopefully that these ideas and these questions actually are creating an opportunity for you to think about your own work as well as the work of others. How is that reflexive? How is that actually creating new opportunities and inspiration around that space? So when we talk about the next stage preparation, we do know that the next stage is not just going to be an online application, but an opportunity to have a conversation. And so that we are asking you to bring an advocate, bring a supporter, help train them or give them an idea of why you're asking them and what you hope they would be able to share with you in that aspect. Those conversations might be opportunities in order for you to hear more about what it is that you do with your work, that inspires other folks. And hopefully that's not just things that you know, but some of those could be surprises, and some things could actually help remind you that there are folks who see what you do and are excited about what you do and what you bring to this community and to these organizations. The one pager, um, we believe that no matter what, even if you are doing this work and move forward, that having a one pager describing your vision and your work is something that could be helpful for you in your approach to anybody else who's trying to support your work. And so we encourage you to be able to think about that. In fact, we are actually going to be hosting a workshop on one sheets. The dates and times are still to be determined, but we do believe that, because we believe that's so important, we are going to create a resource in order to have a workshop about one sheets for folks. It's not going to happen before the deadline for the application, but it will happen sometime, most likely in June. But dates will be determined in that aspect. And so, again, as you've been talking, like in that conversation, if you're invited to that next stage conversation, think about your community, think about how you want to articulate how your vision actually impacts your chosen community and the BIPOC arts ecosystem, and be prepared in order to be able to talk about that. Again, part of our work with the BIPOC Arts Network and Fund, we are a learning organization. We are a learning institution. We are process focused. We believe that there will be outcomes, but we are not defined just by our outcomes, but we're defined by the process. We're defined by what are the inadvertent outcomes that happen. What are the things that are the feelings, the shimmerings, the ripples, all of that work we believe are important outcomes. So it's not just an event, but also what are the things and the ripples that happen in the community in this space. So we're engaging with folks, hopefully, who can name not just the outcome of an opportunity and having an event, but really are thinking about how their work and how their organization has impacts on communities, on artists, on an art form, and are thinking about that as well and can help articulate that. So in that, we also are asking you to be able to participate in the learning and also name your learning. So we're looking for folks who can be involved in it, but also have the capacity in order to step out of the moment and actually be able to recognize, well, what has been the progress so far? What are the questions? What are they learning? And be able to name some of that work in order so that we can continue to improve and adapt, but also so that in the whole idea about adaptive leadership and adaptive opportunities, you need to be able to understand what is going on constantly, and what the effects of your ideas and your decisions are. And so that's part of the work that we're hoping to get in the network. So I know I'm going through a lot of that quickly, but we'll be able to talk more of those questions in this space. I think on a simple note, let me go back one thing. On a simple note to all of this is, what is your how is your vision a story? Tell me the story of like what you hope to be able to accomplish in 3 years as an organization. How are you going to get there? What is a compelling story in order to be like why you are interested in getting to a certain place? What does that look like for you? And why this journey is going to be an exciting and important one, and who's going to be able to go there with you on that aspect. Oh, sorry, that was a little too far. Again, we're going to talk about before we're going to get to the submittable, because we'll get to that in just a second. The questions of mission statement and history, you all need to write out your mission statement. If you have one, great, just type it in, paste it. And history. We actually require you to actually have a written history because we believe it's important for all BIPOC arts organizations to have their history written and to update their history and make sure that their history isn't forgotten. And so please recognize that that's part of that work. We did make a change and so that the history is no longer, it is now the character list is 500 words, is that correct? 500 characters, which I believe is a page, a double spaced page of text. So that should be enough in order to name your history and share enough of this. You'll have the opportunity again to do written, video, or audio responses in whichever languages that you all are interested in needing to do. So we're going to talk about the workplace demographics. Is that for those of you all who have done this work or have applied for us before, you might have seen this. So in order for the work, we need you to actually say, what are the total number of staff members and the total number of key leaders and total number of more members at the top. And then if folks multi-identify, that you can actually say that they will be counted as one in multiple categories. So if you have somebody who identifies as an Afro-Latina, that could also be that they would be named as a one here in Black, Afro-Caribbean, African-American, and Latina, Latino, Latine, and Hispanic. And so that if you have that one staff member and they identify as Afro-Latino, it'll be one up here in the total number, and that was still one in Black, African, Afro-Caribbean, African-American, and one in Latina or Hispanic. So that type of work, and then what age range, and then female, gender nonconformity, or male in that aspect. So that the total number of staff members, is one thing, and that if you're a multi-hyphenate. So I would also say that the age range, pretty much just they select one, because you should fit within one of the ranges and then per person. And again, here, if you have some people who are multi-identify in terms of their gender identity, go ahead and just claim that for each and every one of those individuals, but the staff members need to be total. Hopefully, you also have an Excel spreadsheet and a Google worksheet, a PDF. All of it's pretty clear in terms of what you should be able to fill out, and just reflect the truth of your organization, your key leadership. So in terms of key leadership, actually, okay, so staff members, you can actually say if it's paid or unpaid, like put them as staff members. And key leaders, like who actually are the leadership team? Is it one or two or however many people who actually make decisions on financial people, like who are the team that make financial decisions for your organizations? That's the number of key leaders. And then you have board members or supporters who are those board members in that space. Before we actually open up to and transition to the submittable platform, there's just a few things that we want to remind you of for submittable. Is that you should draft all your answers to applications in a doc or outside of submittable. Plan your talking points and record your video prior to this work. Collect all of your files together before this work. Working in submittable is not always easy. So we encourage you to do some of that work offline before and just utilize submittable as a place in order to upload and finalize and your work. We also encourage you to hit save draft. It's your friend. It doesn't have an automatic save draft, but I encourage you in order to take moments in order to save draft, and then you will also see if your submittable is actually continuing to work. Because if you hit your save draft and nothing happens, then you might need to refresh your whole browser. We also encourage you to schedule time and start and complete the application well before the deadline, recognizing that for folks who are trying to submit at that last hour, it doesn't always work well for everybody. So that there's technical glitches, there's hangups in terms of the cable networks or whatever in order to upload some things. So we encourage you to take some more time. It is the day after Memorial Day weekend, so hopefully you can have some time in order to be able to invest in that aspect. Yeah, so if submittable seems to be stuck or unresponsive, you may need to refresh your browser. You may need to close and quit your browser, reopen submittable, and log back in. Make sure that your browser is up to date. Okay. I think Hank, let's see, what is the question? Great. Do we have any Q&A questions yet? No, no open questions. Review process again, eligibility review is we're going to, like, if you're eligible, that's going to be on our administration. And then panel reviews. We have community panels who are reading your applications and your online applications. Tell them the story. Be convincing about why you're interested in doing your vision. Be convincing around why your vision is connected to the work that you're already doing, and how it serves not only you but a broader community and your audiences. Think about that narrative and that story. You don't have to include everything, but make sure that the essential elements of your story and your narrative are there. And so that we don't have to look in multiple places for your full story. You don't have a lot of narratives, and we did that in a way in order to hopefully make it simpler for you. But so make sure that your story is told in that aspect. And so for those panel reviews. Again, from the panel reviews and those online, we're going to be rating against the criteria as you talked about before, in order to then invite folks to leadership conversations. Again, have a relationship with folks, meet you and your team, and then actually have a conversation around this work, and so that we can ask clarifying questions. You can share more about any other ideas or realizations or excitements that you've had in relationship to this, and you can bring your advocate in order to be able to share their excitement about your vision and this work. And then the final step will be verifications, approvals, and acceptances. Key dates, again, application is currently open. All application materials are due on by before midnight on by 11:59 Central on Tuesday, May 28th, which is, of course, you also have had Memorial Day. So hopefully you've had some time in order to be able to a long weekend in order to be able to finish the application. Application reviews June through August, and leadership conversations should be in August, and notifications will be in late September. If you have any questions, please throw that out into the Q&A. Otherwise, we can actually go through the submittable and submittable platform and that type of work. Pause the sharing, and so that it's only talking to me. What questions do you all have around the narratives and the applications that I could potentially provide some insight for you?
Actually, Sixto, one question did come
Sure.
in and was answered in a typed response. And the question was, does the model organization need to be of color? The short answer is no, but here's the language from the guidelines, which just elaborates on that this organization can be any kind of organization, local or not, peer or not, of color or not. Just wanted to.
Yeah, thanks, Hank. And it does not have to be an arts organization, but please name why it's important to you and why it's important to the growth of your organization as a nonprofit charity in that space. And that's so yeah. So look at those models and hopefully in that space. Again, about the 501c3, for those that are organizations, fiscally sponsored projects, this is here for you to, if 501c3s was in your future, and if you are really planning on that aspect in order for what your vision of your future looks like. We encourage you to apply if that's part of your future. Don't apply to get $20,000 because you think that will be able to solve everything, because $20,000 is not going to solve the situation for a consultant or lawyers or folks in order to be able to do all that work in order to set you up as a 501c3. and then create problems when you actually are have to manage a board. You also have to manage the filings for IRS and all that work. We're trying to make sure that when you're doing this type of work, that you are prepared to be an organization like that, and that that type of organization and that administration is something that makes sense for you and your vision forward. So again, oh, I forget that let's see, that application we're going to have that that information session is going to be on May 7th. It's going to be a lunchtime Zoom meeting. So it basically said, so you want to be a 501c3. It'll be giving you some of those tips, tricks, and some of that work, and the steps needed in order to become a 501c3. Also, again, on May 14th, we'll have the workshop Goal Setting for Arts Organizations. That's going to be hosted by Fresh Arts. So I see that there is a question: when writing out our narrative, should we answer the prompts while keeping, oops, in mind the question you shared in the PowerPoint for fuller, richer responses? Yes, I mean, the idea for us is that we provided the guiding questions as an opportunity for you to think through the opportunity, what a vision looks like. What a vision for you looks like, that and what a vision for and how that impacts communities, how that impacts audiences. And so we encourage you to think through those questions. Again, you don't have to answer each and every question in your narrative, but answer the questions that are important to what the vision of your organization is, and highlight and prioritize those questions and those answers. We're good at asking lots of questions, and we hope that we're provoking thought and provoking opportunities for you to be able to think through some of these things. But again, you don't have to share all of those thoughts in one page. Identify that work. Okay, so does anybody need, if there are any other questions, please go ahead and put it in the Q&A and we can answer that. But otherwise, we're going to step into the, I'm going to have Hank open the submittable in order so that you can see that portal and be ready. And he can work through some of the technical issues on that part.
Hi there, everyone.
Guide you.
I'll be sharing my screen here, and any questions come up, of course, throw them in the Q&A as we go through this. Some of it's a little technical, but it's just a little guide way into the submittable platform. This is the okay, hold on. The link that we are providing you all the time, so it'll bring you to this page, and you'll see the Cultural Treasure Accelerator right here. Some of you may have already started this. If you haven't, you can press submit and get started. You don't have to be on this page to get into your account. Any submittable page will get you into your account if you have an account. But if you don't have an account, you may open this up and create an account. If you have an account also, don't forget this up here. It's a little hidden. It's worthwhile to note. Anytime you get here, after CTA is over, it's May 28th, after the deadline, you can still come here, but this banner won't be here, but you can still get into your account up here. I'll show you that later. We're going to hit submit and show you the sign-in page. If you don't have an account, you'll want to create one. I'm going to use an existing account to show you how to get in here. This is my account that shows you how to get in. This, here we go, shows you all of the ways that you can get to your old profile, your submissions, whether you've used Submittable before. As soon as you get into the Cultural Treasure Accelerator, the first thing that happens is that you'll be brought to the eligibility section, and it's just a couple of questions to note what your organizational status is. You will have different questions if you're a fiscally sponsored project or collective than if you are yourself holding a 501c3 status. And so we'll go into the 501c3 status. That's probably what most organizations are going to be, and we'll provide further support in the guidelines for fiscally sponsored projects to show what questions you're going to answer. Mainly, it's just information about your sponsorship. And finally, you'll name one of the 9 counties to ensure that you are eligible. When you come into the next page, you'll never see that eligibility page again. This is what you'll see every single time you log in. When you get into the submittable and you log in and you go to your submissions, you'll see your submissions. This is drafts. That means you haven't finished and you haven't submitted it yet. And you can go in anytime to continue it.
So Hank, while you're doing this, I'm going to answer to saying, no, you cannot apply as an individual artist. You have to apply as a fiscally sponsored project or a 501c3.
We mentioned before that the very best plan for doing submittable is to begin your complete application offline before you get here. But once you are in here, then you can begin to just name all of the information as you see it. But as you are done with it, anytime you're done with it, make sure to scroll down to the very bottom and save the draft. If you need to pause, save draft. If you need to leave and come back anytime, save your draft. Then you can come back and then you can continue where you were.
Well, Hank, let me just answer, like, yes, it was one of those choices, but if you answer like in the eligibility as an individual artist, you'll be deemed ineligible.
Right. That's an option in the eligibility section that will not let you proceed. You'll see here, we mentioned that this is a written response only for the history. The mission is the same. But here you'll see for the narrative questions, those big questions about the 3-year history of your organization, you'll get to make a choice about pasting or typing a response or uploading a video, in which case you'll be given an option, or being given a link to an audio recording. So that's available for all of these narrative questions. And this option here is a way to just download all the questions so that you don't have to see them on your screen. You can take them off, print them out, and think about them separately before you come into this system and start working in Submittable. The next item to really focus on is, these are all just elements from the guidelines, but here is the leadership demographics worksheet that you talked about. So you'll be entering that data into this form as you go through, and you'll see you can scroll down to the bottom of the whole section to get into each of these fields to enter that. You saw that demographic worksheet online, and we have that available for you. And there's also definitions for the demographic identifications that you can always go to. Let's see here. The rest of this is really technical information that is not shared with the reviewers. The reviewers are going to be focusing on everything above the organizational information section, which is the meaningful questions from the narrative. The rest of this, I think we can browse through and again, save your draft. And again, don't forget that you can log in from any URL, check out your profile and your submissions. And lastly, if you go to the help desk, you'll see the Cultural Treasure Accelerator help desk with some key topics here, answers to questions that you may have. And if you want to ask a question, you can go right here to new support ticket and send a question our way, and we'll make sure to publish it. That is it for my section
Yes.
here. Is there anything else I need to call out, Sixto, before I stop sharing?
No, because I'm going to go ahead and just share. So
Okay.
this is the when we said that all your questions are available, it is in a Google document that you can actually download. Here, just click on that. It's in the guidelines. It has all the guiding questions. You can't actually type anything here in this document, but you can download it in order to be able to work on it on your own computer. Um,
Sixto, you're muted.
Sorry, that was really, was I muted for the entire time? Yes, it was. So again, let me just share, here's that screen. This is the Cultural Treasure Accelerator application worksheet that you can download. You will actually have to download it and you can then work on it from here. It has all the guiding questions. You can type on this sheet and then paste, but it gives you through all of those questions. Also, it creates here on the eligibility questions, anything that's in red is actually demonstrates that you're ineligible. Anything that is in black will move you forward in terms of that component. And so therefore, and then here is pretty much everything that you will be able to see in submittable prior to actually having to work in submittable on that space. Yes, and then you can download that aspect. Yeah, the worksheet, and also you can look at let me go here. There's a whole downloadable version of this as well in terms of here is the downloadable Google Sheet of it, and there's also a PDF form in order for you all to be able to work on that space. Okay. I'm now not muted and I'm not sharing anything. Any other questions that we can help you all with? We encourage you to keep on going to support.houstonbanf.org in order for any of the questions that we receive that we can share, we will answer and we'll put up in that support desk. And we try to do that as quickly as we can, but we will have updates every week. And those updates we'll remind you of those updates on the CTA or the BANF net newsletter for organizations in this space. So we encourage you to be on that and sign up for that in the newsletter. And we will be able to get that information and those updates from us in that space. So any other questions that you would all like to share in this moment? Again, the support desk, there will be the information, the one-on-ones that will be available beginning May 1st. And then we will actually post more information, like the details and the registration for the other information sessions that we're available in on our website and in the newsletter. So thanks so much. Hopefully you all got some answers or a little bit more help on what we're looking for and how to be thinking about your work in relationship to the Cultural Treasure Accelerator initiative. Are there eligibility requirements for fiscal sponsors? They need to be 501s. They need to be recognized 501c3 charitable organizations by the IRS. And you have to have a fiscal sponsored agreement. You have to have a contract that you will upload as evidence of your fiscal sponsor agreement. That should be, and they should be able to, and I'm sorry, let's also, should be, the $25,000 or the 20,000 award should not tip them over. So hopefully that they have a budget that is larger than the $50,000, but that shouldn't be, hopefully that shouldn't be a problem for the organizations that are doing that are 501c3s. They should be able to manage that aspect as well. But yeah, so that will be that'll be one of the eligibility questions for us through that first round or if you all qualify and if the 501c3 qualifies. But make sure that you have the contract with them and that they are recognized currently by the IRS as an eligible 501c3. Other questions? Thanks so much for spending some time with us. Hopefully you all had an opportunity. Hopefully these questions are helpful for you to be thinking about what is your future, what is your organization's future, and how you want to make that happen. Does the whole amount need to be awarded in one go? It is a $20,000 award that can be that will be given to you in it is in one fiscal year. Yes. Other questions? If not, thanks so much. We will be posting the FAQs and the YouTube later on this week. Yeah, maybe this week. Yeah, we're on Monday. So yeah, hopefully it'll be by Friday this week. It'll be up, if not before. Thanks, everybody. Take care.